And that's when I realized that I had been kind of turned off to religion for a while. And then I came here and I realized this is truly a community. It's not just a church. And I went to Camp Ladies with Reverend James and Andrea and had incredible experiential workshops there. And it gave me a whole new insight onto life. So I'm so glad that your community is thriving and you have such a beautiful sanctuary and facilities back there as well. So I'm glad to see it. Okay, on with the talk. Let me see if I can push the right button. The title of my talk is Face the Fear, Embrace the Dream. And I'd like to do a little process to begin with you right now. I'd just like you to get comfortable. If your legs are crossed, maybe uncross them. And then just take a deep inhale inwards, and then as you exhale, let your eyes gently close. And I'd like you to think of some dream that you've had. Maybe it's been decades old. Maybe it was a dream of writing a book. Maybe it was a dream of traveling. Maybe it was a dream of playing an instrument or singing a song. Maybe it was a dream of being the best parent or grandparent that you could be. Just when you get a sense of that, I want you to now think about what has stopped this dream from manifesting. What's blocked it from becoming realized? Is there some fear that you've been holding on to? Some fear of maybe not being good enough? Thinking that somebody could do it better? Maybe it's a fear of dying. Maybe it's a fear of not enoughness. When you get a sense of that, I just invite you to take another deep breath in and exhale and allow your eyes to open and bring your focus back into the room. And I'm just curious if anybody would like to share what that dream that they've had is on the burner. Any? Yes. Travel. Okay. All at one time, the book. Okay, great. Anybody else? Yes? Tigers. Yeah, I love kitty cats. Okay. Great. So maybe adopting a tiger. I'd be careful with that one. That brings up all the facing the fear stuff. Anybody else want to share? Okay, well, what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to share an experience that I had with you, and it was my own dream that I had, and hopefully you'll garner some insights or tools that you can use to implementing your own. So about 30-some years ago, shortly after I left Reading, I had a dream that I wanted to travel around the world all in one loop and take 7 or 8 months to do it. I wanted to travel on my own, and I wanted to go and connect with as many cultures and countries that I could. And I wanted to interview people along the way and find out what their dreams and desires were, and if they were living their passion, and if not, why? What was in their way? And so I thought, well, that's all nice and dandy, but that's way too big of a dream. That's way too hard. Going to cost too much money. My mother actually told me how all the ways I could die if I did this dream. And she went into great detail in how that could happen. Don't listen to your mothers. No children in the audience, I hope. Okay. So I had this dream, and I thought, okay, I put it off and put it off. And then finally one day I read this quote, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk that it took to blossom." This hit me right here, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm contracting. I'm not expanding like the universe wants us to do. I felt like I was one of those shellfish that had outgrown its shell, or a butterfly that was trying to get out of the chrysalis, and for whatever reason I couldn't. It was more painful to stay where I was than to move forward. Well, I had a long list of excuses why I couldn't do this. In fact, I had one of the excuses go off to college, and I broke up with another excuse. So finally, the list kind of dwindled down to nothing but me and looking at this dream. I went out one day and I saw this heart-shaped cloud in the sky. I don't know if you get the same heart thing that I got from it, but I thought I saw it as a sign. I was like, yes, the universe wants me to do this. So I was so excited. I began to get my belongings all together to sell my house. I was going to sell all my belongings and to take off. Well, on the day that I decided to kind of activate everything, I discovered that I had breast cancer. And this was not on the list of things that I wanted to do. This was nowhere near close. And I kind of went right into victimhood at first. Like, seriously, universe? Me? Why would you do that right when you know I'm getting ready to do my dream? And I had a little pity party for a while, but then I realized and remembered this teaching. I remembered that there's nothing that I can't handle on my path. And so after surgery and a few months after my final treatment, I decided that I was going to take off and go. But first, once again, you have to decide, and I want you to think of your own dream now, because you have to get out of your comfort zone. I had a nice little comfort zone, a cozy house. And so think of, what do you have to give up in order to make something happen? My dream and my journey were interchangeable. So I kind of want you to now see, whatever dream you have, that there's a journey in the process of making it happen. It's not just about instant manifestation. It's about cultivating the experiences along the way that make it so much sweeter. So I had to get out of that comfort zone. I had to say goodbye to loved ones for a while. I knew I wouldn't be able to see them for a long time. And I just had to let go. When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. When I let go of what I have, I receive what I need. I love the Tao Te Ching, and this also spoke to me about trusting the universe. Knowing that, too loud? Knowing that whatever is occurring, that my needs will be provided for. So I began to kind of envision that I was like Jane of the jungle, and I was swinging from limb to limb or vine to vine, and I thought, the moment I had to let go of one vine, another one miraculously appeared that I could grab onto. It was amazing how this flowed. So my first vine that I was able to grab onto was stopping at my sister's who lived in Hawaii. And it was I was still healing, and so it was nice to be able to just kick back. What are your vines? What are your support systems? I brought a little puppet with me to interact with the children. It had, I don't know if you could see, some people thought it was creepy looking. It had bright orange hair and, striped socks and everything, but she made kids laugh too. And my niece and nephew that were so loving to me during this time. Don't just do something, sit there. We are not human doings, we're human beings. Yet, how often do we forget that? So it was important to me at this first juncture to slow down. I'd been working very hard, trying to get everything ready and then going through the different experiences to get there. And I just needed to sit down and feel the sand beneath my feet, look at the rainbows before me, and be in the present moment. How often do we forget to live mindfully, just appreciating the basics around us? The second stop on my journey was in Indonesia. And I like to think that I met a lot of teachers along my way, as I hope that you do when you embark on whatever journey you have and dream. This man was a former Balinese dancer, and he was totally blind. So he faced his fears every day going out into the world, and yet listened to that inner guidance that told him the directions, the steps to take. He had a major impact on me as I continued on my journey. Prepare your mind to receive the best that life has to offer. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, had it right when he said this, because just like a garden, we prepare the soil. We have to mentally prepare our mind for that idea, that intention to take hold and be a vibrational match in order for our dreams to manifest. So create that vision that you have for yourself. Here I was up in northern Bali, and I discovered these 10,000-year-old springs because we don't have a lot of rituals in this teaching. And we meditate, that's awesome, light some candles. But when I found out I got to jump in this holy water, I was so excited. So I put on the sarong that they required, and I got under the spout, and I just felt so cleansed and blessed, and I let go of any fears of cancer. I let go of the fears of my journey yet to be, and I felt totally prayed up by the end of the day. Well, I want you to meet this guy. Now, he lived up in the plumeria trees, and I was very grateful when I'd walk by because he was about the size of my hand, the spider. I don't know if you can see. But I thought, wow, I'm glad he lives outdoors. That's a great place for a critter that big. You can imagine my shock when I got home that night from these holy springs where I was all feeling confident and great to see this guy right next to my toilet. It was not a good fit. So I tried to talk him out of going, outside. He didn't want to move. So after a little dance that we did, trying to corral him, he came running right at my feet. And I jumped back to get away from him. I went flying up, came down, hit my head on the hard tile, and hit my hip on the step going down into the bathroom. And when I opened my eyes, my arm was literally touching the spider's legs, and I was looking into his little red beady eyes. I remember those very distinctly. I think I mumbled something like, "You can have the bathroom, just leave me alone." And I quickly went back and sat on my bed, and there in the mirror in front of me, I saw this huge goose egg on my head, and I saw this bone protruding from my hip. So I knew that I'd injured myself pretty severely. Fortunately, I had people at the guest house where I was staying be so compassionate, and they helped me along until I could barely walk to get on the plane and go on to a place in northern Thailand where I knew I could heal a little bit more before I continued my journey. Well, here at this place in northern Thailand, one morning we were eating breakfast, and we had a National Geographic display right in front of us. I don't know if you can see, but there's a snake, maybe about 3 or 4 feet long, and he's wrapped himself around a gecko. And the gecko was a good-sized gecko, about a foot long, and they were having this big old wrestling match. And on here, oops, I did it again. There's that spot in that. You could see the gecko a little bit clearer with this picture. And here, the snake is definitely getting the upper hand, or the upper body, as all that's sticking out is the 2 legs and the tail. I could totally relate to the gecko here. I felt like I had been engulfed by this snake of life. I couldn't really walk, and I still had 6.5 months of my journey to go. I felt that all I could see was the inside of the snake's belly. So think about a time in your life when you felt overwhelmed by life, when things are just engulfing you, swallowing you up, and you can't really see a way out. Well, within moments after I took the picture on the right, a Thai monk came along, and with a long broom handle, he pulled the snake off the wall, squished the gecko right out of the snake's belly. He tossed the still wriggling snake off into the jungle. We all looked at the gecko. He shook himself off and then scurried off into the jungle as well. I guess to be continued out there. The lesson in this for me was no matter how hopeless things appeared to the gecko, a deeper, higher intervention occurred. Think about that. I mean, sometimes we don't have to know the hows, the details of how we're going to get out of whatever debacle or experience we're in. But the universe does. We don't have to figure it all out. There is such a deep lesson in trusting and letting go despite how the conditions might appear. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change. And for me, I realized that it wasn't the spider that hurt me. It was my reaction to it. It doesn't always matter what happens to us, but how we react. So it was a lesson in slowing down and also not getting overwhelmed by what had occurred, but moving forward. I met these little survivors, 2 little orphan babies near the guest house that I was staying in Thailand, and they were also teachers for me. They couldn't really walk, and I couldn't really walk. They couldn't speak much Thai or speak at all, and I couldn't speak much Thai. So together we kind of crawled around on the floor and drooled and laughed together. It was a wonderful healing time period. I don't know if you could tell, but this little one has a little stuffed gecko in its mouth. Kind of creepy. So because I couldn't walk, I was kind of abducted by a teacher who needed an English teacher, and it was a wonderful experience because I got to go down and teach in this little Buddhist school. And the children were so eager to learn. I don't know if you can tell, but they don't have desks. They don't have fancy equipment, but they wanted to absorb all that I had to say. And they reminded me to reignite that curiosity that I know we all have, we just forget about sometimes. No matter how old you are, you can be curious and inspired about life again. The kindergartners taught me to laugh. They found that I had done all these really ridiculous things, and so they might as well laugh at them. And they reminded me that when I was going to Thailand, I couldn't speak much English or Thai, but I was so grateful that I remembered how to say thank you. And so I kept on telling the Thai man who couldn't speak any English, thank you, over and over again. Well, I realized after about 3 hours that I'd really been saying hello to him in Thai. I wasn't saying thank you at all. He was quite understanding, but you have to laugh at yourself in life because we're constantly doing things that require it. In Cambodia, I got the lesson from the trees. The tree knew that it was going to grow upward toward the light, despite the fact that there were a 1,000-year-old temple blocking its path. And I found that together they were so much more beautiful than they would have been had they stood separately. So can you coexist in your life? On to India, being stuck in traffic a lot. Sometimes you might feel that on your journey where you're going, you're not really moving. But all you need to know is if you're going in the right direction and just getting down the next 10 feet. On my bicycle, I'd ride through this very dusty street area at night, and my headlamp kept on going out, but I realized I didn't need to know how I was going to get every turn and twist down the path. Just those next 10 feet. I went on to a community called Auroville, and it was way down south, and it was one of the places of India that my mother was, once again, warned me about. And I discovered this beautiful community where people were such enlightened beings, and I met Wachella there. And Wachella was my guest house worker, and she was a wonderful gift to me because she used to come in every morning, and what I didn't know is the thatched hut that I lived in was really the home of a bat. So she would come in and escort the bat out with a little broom every morning. The bat managed to come back in every night. We just kind of learned to coexist there. And so Debbie Ford says, "Where is my faith right now?" Is my faith in my fears? Do I have faith that I will be guided to the circumstances that will give me exactly what I need? That's powerful for me because, once again, are you bringing your fears with you? Or are you letting them go and seeing things anew? So as I sat in this thatched hut, watching the spiders crawl along the white wall and seeing the bats circle above, I just affirmed that I was under a super protective Wonder Woman kind of mosquito net, and I also visualized it being a white light. So are you taking this white light with you on your path, on your experiences, knowing that you are always protected and guided with this loving force of the universe? I also had a family that took me in and were so kind to teach me how to cook Indian food and taught me little crafts that they had. Are you walking toward the light instead of staying in your fears of the past? One tip, if you are crossing a street in India, I recommend that you be escorted by a herd of cows. You're less likely to get run over that way. Can you face your shadow self? Here I was at the Berlin Holocaust Memorial, and it struck me by looking at and hearing about all the atrocities that had occurred. I looked deeply and thought, where have I been less than kind? How can I reach out to people who need it more? On to Anne Frank's house, I saw messages she had written around the room that said that she had always wanted to be a published author and be read around the world by millions. And I couldn't help but think, had events not unfolded the way they had, would we know who Anne Frank is today? She wrote, "Everyone has inside of him a piece of good news. The good news is that you don't know how great you can be, how much you can love, what you can accomplish, and what your potential is. So get in touch with that potential and live it on behalf of Anne Frank." Here in front of the Brandenburg Gate, they had a peace meditation once a week that I happened to stumble across. And I was so touched that they were bringing this energy of peace to a place that had been so embroiled in war. Where are you bringing peace along your journey? In a country that has become so divided, are you bringing it to family dinners, to workplaces, that healing presence? Just like the choir sang about peace on the world. As my journey was nearing an end, I was able to look out the mountains and appreciate that they were not barriers, but opportunities that led me to where I needed to be. I was able to see from a higher perspective and gain an insight that I wouldn't have gained had the spider not been there, had the cancer not been there. It made me appreciate each step along the way so much more. Finally, I was able to reunite with my son, who was studying in Paris at the time. And I invite you to celebrate the little milestones along the way. The fact that I had almost completed my journey, I was so filled with gratitude. And to be able to share it with my son was icing on the cake. Wayne Dyer says, when you live on a round planet, there's no choosing sides. So when you realize, especially after I had interviewed all these people around the world about what they wanted, their desires, I realized they were no different from my own. Wanting a happy, healthy family, wanting food for my children, wanting a warm roof over my head, a place to sleep. And I stopped in the middle of America, one of my last stops, and I was on a path. And it reminded me that we kind of are walking this labyrinth of life. Sometimes we feel like we're lost, but if we just stop and enjoy the journey and know that it's leading us to where we eventually need to be, we can enjoy the path. So Henry David Thoreau says, go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you've imagined. And I invite you now to close your eyes as we go in for treatment. And just know that right here and right now in this present moment, you can begin. You can begin to step forward and move into that place of expression, that divine sweet spot that says, yes, you are here to manifest your dreams. You are here for the beloved journey. You are here to laugh in life. And you are here because you have a divine place on this planet. And so in this attitude of gratitude, knowing that all is unfolding perfectly, like pieces of a puzzle coming beautifully together, I celebrate this knowing for each person here, knowing that they too have the power to take that first step today, to go out and make a positive difference that magnifies throughout the world. And so I release this treatment to divine mind, knowing these words are acted upon as I speak them now. And together we affirm by saying, and so it is. Thank you so much.